Hi, this is Rev Ed with today's Back Porch Devotional from Psalm 55. Give ear to my prayer, O God, and hide not yourself from my plea for mercy. Attend to me and answer me. I am restless in my complaint, and I moan because of the noise of the enemy, because of the oppression of the wicked. For they drop trouble upon me, and in anger they bear a grudge against me. My heart is in anguish within me. The terrors of death have fallen upon me. Fear and trembling come upon me, and horror overwhelms me. And I say, oh, that I had wings like a dove. I would fly away and be at rest. Yes, I would wander far away. I would lodge in the wilderness. I would hurry to find a shelter from the raging wind and tempest. But it is not an enemy who taunts me. Then I could bear it. It is not an adversary who deals insolently with me. Then I could hide from him. But it is you, a man, my equal, my companion, my familiar friend. We used to take sweet counsel together. Within God's house, we walked in the throng. But I call to God, and the Lord will save me. Evening and morning and at noon I utter my complaint and moan, and he hears my voice. He redeems my soul in safety from the battle that I wage, for many are arrayed against me. God will give ear and humble them, he who is enthroned from of old, because they do not change and do not fear God. My companion stretched out his hands against his friends. He violated his covenant. His speech was smooth as butter, yet war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet they were drawn swords. Cast your burden on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never permit the righteous to be moved. But you, O God, will cast them down into the pit of destruction. Men of blood and treachery shall not live out half their days, but I will trust in you. This Psalm of David is uncertain as to the circumstance that gave rise to it. But David is expressing so eloquently and so painfully the betrayal of a friend. He faced many enemies in his career, both before he became king and all throughout his reign. But this was different. This was someone with whom he had shared meals, someone who'd been in worship with him, someone that he counted on as a trusted friend. And there is probably no sting to the heart that is greater than when we feel betrayed by someone we have trusted, by someone that we thought loved us, by someone that we had no idea that they were planning to stab us in the back. This is a deeply disheartening experience. And as David says, he says, my heart is in anguish within me. The terrors of death have fallen upon me. Fear and trembling come upon me, and horror overwhelms me. This is what it feels like when your friends betray you and abandon you and walk away from you. And then he says these beautiful words, oh, that I had wings like a dove. I would fly away and be at rest. I would wander far away and lodge in the wilderness. Is there anybody who hasn't felt like that from time to time? But you would especially feel that way if you had been betrayed by someone that you thought loved you. And what we have to remember always is that our Savior Jesus knew exactly what this feels like. He had chosen 12 to be close to him, 12 men who walked with him intimately for 3 years. They ate with him, they camped together, they did ministry together, they worshiped God together, they prayed together. He taught them everything that they needed to know to be his faithful disciples. And yet one of them, Judas Iscariot, betrayed him to the authorities. There's this powerful passage from the 13th chapter of John's Gospel. It is at the Last Supper. And you need to remember as you hear these words that Jesus has already washed the disciples' feet, including the feet of Judas. And after saying these things, Jesus was troubled in his spirit, and he testified, "Truly, truly, I say to you, one of you will betray me." And the disciples looked at one another, uncertain of whom he spoke. One of his disciples, whom Jesus loved, was reclining at table close to Jesus, so Simon Peter motioned to him to ask Jesus of whom he was speaking. So that disciple, leaning back against Jesus, said to him, "Lord, who is it?" And Jesus answered, "It is he to whom I will give this morsel of bread when I have dipped it." So when he had dipped the morsel, he gave it to Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot. Then after he had taken the morsel, Satan entered into him. And Jesus said to him, "What you are going to do, do quickly." Now no one at the table knew why he had said this to him. Some thought that because Judas had the money bag, Jesus was telling him, "Buy what we need for the feast," or that he should give something to the poor. So after receiving the morsel of bread, he immediately went out, and it was night. When John makes the note that it was night after Judas went out, he's not simply talking about the time of day. This is when darkness has reared its head to the highest level. This is when Satan thought he had triumphed over Jesus, the Son of God. The enemy thought that he had undone God's plan, and what he would soon discover is that even Judas was playing a part in the redemption of humanity. And we need to remember that Judas did everything of his own free will. Jesus knew who would betray him, but Judas still made his own choices. And Judas bore the responsibility for that. And Jesus referred to him at one point as the son of perdition. But nonetheless, Jesus was betrayed by a friend. He betrayed him with a kiss in the Garden of Gethsemane. If you have ever felt betrayed, if you've ever been abandoned by people that you thought loved you, if you've ever been stabbed in the back, you know how awful that is, and you know how incredibly hard it can be to even think about forgiving people when they have done this. What we need to remember is that our Savior Jesus endured the same thing. He knew what it meant to be betrayed by a close friend and to be abandoned by people that he thought loved him and were with him all the way. You are not walking through this with a Savior who doesn't know what it means to experience these things. You can trust that Jesus knows exactly what you're going through, and that ought to give us comfort as we are going through it. So we know that we can deal with these things, as painful as they are, and turn them over to God. We can trust him to bear this for us and with us because he has gone through it before us. This is something that ought to give us confidence. And whenever we have to experience something awful like this, we can rest in the peace of our unity with Christ, who has tasted all of the ugliness that human beings can dish out. And he drank that cup for us. David finishes up this psalm and he says, "Cast your burden on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never permit the righteous to be moved." Obviously, this does not mean that the righteous, that is those who strive to follow God and do what is right, it does not mean they're not going to go through trouble. But it means that as they go through trouble, the Lord will be with us. Jesus said, "In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart. I have overcome the world." Trust in him this day. Cast your burdens upon him and know that you are safe with him, no matter what you're going through, even if you have been betrayed by someone you loved. God's blessings be upon you this day.